Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about girls, women in programming and culture. So let's get into it. So the question in question here was, Frederick, what can, male developers do in order to not scare female developers away? And I can't even I can't believe that I'm getting this question. I'm sorry. I will not go that way. I will not. I will just say the first thing that I think when I hear this question, and that is treat them as human beings. Treat them with respect, like you would any person. Be, have empathy, understand the person that you are talking to. You are not talking to a gender, you are talking to an individual. And just as if you were to talk to a man, you will have to have different considerations based on the things that you know about this person. So I just don't get this. In my world, it is so easy. To me, this is a nothing problem. The only time I can see this becoming a problem is if you as the man have a perception that causes you to have a behavior that feels offensive, or it feels like you're condescending or something like that towards the woman. Like, I've never ever worked. I've worked with tons of female coworkers. I have female bosses. Every single day we manage to just get along fine. They are happy, and I'm happy. We have no issues whatsoever, none of them. And I've never been in an environment where this sort of behavior that I see in other parts of the world exists. And the reason why it doesn't exist is because of this fundamental thing. You don't in a sane office culture, you don't perceive women to be of lower value. They're there just as everybody else to fill a function for the company. And if they do that just as everybody else, there's no difference. There is absolutely no difference between like this divide between gender and so forth. It comes down to your value system as the guy. If this is the issue, this is fundamentally the problem. If you are treating, and then this doesn't have to just to do with women, it has to do with anybody. If it's someone who of a specific ethnic group, or if it's someone with a specific skin color or whatever, if you make it's you who's making that difference. It's actually funny because I would argue, of all the jobs I've ever had growing up, I've seen racism, I've seen prejudice, and like I have friends who work in different areas and so forth, and female friends who work in different more male-dominated industries, and they of course tell me all of these things that they get treated this way and that way, and I can only see one red thread, and I'm not going to talk about that because that red thread is. Well, that's going to spark a whole different conversation, and I don't have the energy to answer all the comments regarding this. But what I will say is that in IT, on average, I would say that the amount of prejudice that I've seen towards women. I'm not a woman myself, not by the strictest legal genetic definition anyway. So I can't really say how much of a difference it is, but from what I can see, the amount of people who stick around in IT, like females who just keep on being, they enjoy their work, it seems to be fairly high. It's less of a problem. I'm not saying that it's not a problem, at least not here in my region. It usually isn't really much of an issue. But yeah, so this, if you want to help this situation out, actually having that in the back of your head is a very simple first step. Have a look at your own value system. Do you actually perceive women to be less valuable? Do you perceive them to be the sort of people who should adapt to you and you shouldn't adapt back? Or is there a way for you to kind of find an equilibrium? That's what I think that any healthy relationship needs to be built on, just in general, and that is a mutual respect. and a mutual desire to find some common ground, to accommodate each other. It's to me, it's a bit of it's a tug of war. With every relationship, you all both pull based on your own needs, what you need at a certain strength. And the strength that you pull with is basically just your needs from what you need from this relationship, regardless of what that relationship is. And as long as that is in balance, you don't move anywhere. The line of the rope, if we call it that, is going to be all right on the mark. Nothing moves. You're not in an imbalanced type of situation. But if one person needs more than the other, and you start pulling at different strength, and all of a sudden one falls over, then the relationship collapses. So it's about figuring out, okay, how much do I have to give, and how much can I ask in return, regardless of what that is, and finding a way for both parties to be able to pull at the same amount of strength, so you both can get something out of the relationship. And this is so easy. This is the thing. As I said, I cannot say anything besides that it comes back to your own perceptions regarding how your relationship with a female should be. It's no different. Your relationship is not going to be any different with a woman, like a female coworker, and a man, unless you're unable to understand, unless you don't have the empathy to understand that she will have, just as any individual, it doesn't matter which individual it is, each of these people, regardless of gender, are going to have different emotional needs, different intellectual needs, different requirements on social behavior, etc., etc. And it's basically up to you and them to find a way where you can compromise to the point where you both feel comfortable in that environment. Sometimes that means that you should change your behavior a little bit just to make it easier for someone, and sometimes it means that they will need to understand that people are who people are. And if both parties go in with an open mind and feel that, all right, we're actually trying to commit to making this work, I've never seen that fail. The problems come when you have one group who feels that the other group is responsible for the change, because that's not how it's going to work. It's a mutual responsibility, and both parties need to have the desire for it to work. So what I want you to take away from this is that, for me, when it comes to trying to make an environment more inviting for female coworkers or female programmers, it basically comes down to these simple things. You need to treat them with a mutual respect, just as you would treat anybody. And you need to also ask yourself, like, what is it I could get to know them? Have a conversation. Try to figure out what they like, what they don't like. Just as anybody, just be nice and try to understand what it is that, they need from an environment so that you can behave accordingly, just as you would anyway. I mean, you don't have the same behavior as when you're hanging out with your friends as when you're hanging out with your boss, as an example. Just do that. It's that simple. Have a great day.